This video is not for persons under the age of 13. By watching this video, you are declaring that you are above 13 years of age. Hello and welcome to today's painting. It's of a falcon. It's going to be in watercolour. I'll be using my White Nights paints on some basic 300 gram watercolours. That's £140 if you use the other system. It's cold press. I've got one or two brushes that I potentially might be using. These are ones that I'm thinking of really. A little rake brush there, filbert, a small pointed mop, and a large mop for filling in the large areas. So I don't know what type of falcon this is. I'm going to try and do it reasonably realistic if I possibly can, and let's make a start. Just with regards to the painting itself, it's almost a full bodied painting, but for today's artwork we're just going to concentrate on the head area. May just do round there for example, but it goes quite a bit further down the full painting, so I'll finish that off camera, because everything that you need to learn really for this painting is in that section anyway. The feathers that will be done round here are fairly much the same as the feathers that are further down. It has a fairly consistent pattern all the way down it. Right, using the large mop brush, I'm going to make a bit of a blue, and I'm going to add a tiny bit of white gouache, not white gouache, yeah, white gouache. I don't know, is that many different products? So this is going to be first underpainting, and I'm going to see if I can try and get a bit of dry brushiness, and I'm going to avoid going anywhere near the actual bird itself if I possibly can. And yeah, that's kind of stuff I want to see. If it does go over it, it's no big disaster, but I'm just working my way around it if I can, without it looking too shabby. There we go. And this will be the first of several coats. There's a bluey background, but it's fairly dark, and in there as well. And I just finished the bottom bit off because I want that to be complete and a whole. You can't see that down there, but that's that done. So that's that first coat. We're going to build up layer by layer, and we're going to make it progressively darker till I get the kind of atmosphere that I want. It's not absolutely mission critical yet because we're just doing the background, but we need to figure out where the light is for the painting. Now, as far as I can see from the reference, there's lots of strong light hitting this side, and less so at that side. It seems a little bit ambient, but more biased towards the left hand side, so that's where I'm going to place my light source, maybe up there somewhere. You can see that. So let's continue on now. This is roughly dry. We're getting a little bit more stronger value in the darker patches of the background. So what I'm doing is I've got some ultramarine blue and I'm putting some a dark brown in. I believe it's like a type of sepia colour. It's not exactly sepia, but I think they call it warm sepia. Just a little bit, a dab more blue. There you go, we've got that deep dark blue now, and I'm going to work from that edge there. Again, trying to avoid actually, let's see if I can, trying to avoid hitting the bird if I possibly can. That bit done, then coming round. In the minimum amount of strokes as I possibly can. And then you'll not see this off the, but I'm going to again complete down at the bottom. Okay, that's that done. Again, it's a matter of leaving that toe again dry, and we'll put a darker layer on, and then that should be the background completed. Right, I've mixed up a darker blue now, and that's dry, and we're gonna put darker blue in bits of areas like that, just randomly. And when we've done that and we're satisfied that that's where we want everything, make sure that's definitely dark, I'll soften it up a bit down at the bottom there. What do I mean about softening up? Well, I'll show you now. You might see really strong edges like that, for example. Well, I've just wet me brush now, and with normal cold water, and I'm just nipping the edges off of it. Right. Just to make sure that there's not too many very strong edges in it. We don't mind any some edges, but we do also want bits of blended areas as well. So just, there we go. And just as a last bit for this, just making sure I've got it spot on with what we're doing there. Just doing specific dark areas. And I'm going to call the background done. I don't want it to be overly prominent, the background, because the key element is the bird, really. So the more simple you can leave the background, the better. Just a little bit more work on that. There we go. We'll wait and see how that comes out when it's dry. You might notice from the reference image that it's mostly white, the body of the falcon, with brown as flecks of feather. But what I'm going to do is do a very creamy, for the white area I'm going to do a very creamy yellow, and then fade that into a grey blue so that you get warm and cool interacting in one another. Although it's not going to be that obvious, it'll still register as a white. So the trick of this is making sure that it's light enough when you're doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get something like yellow ochre or something like that. Or burnt sienna, or a fairly vibrant yellow will do it, but I'm going to put that in amongst my white paint and make it very, very creamy. And I'm looking for areas where I think it's going to be white, but warm white rather than light white, rather than dark white or cool white. So like that. And you can leave areas white as well, but that's where I think there's going to be the majority of that white, the light white, and I've left little bits of other flecks of white as well. So now we move on to the areas where it's white but it's more on the blue level, so it's slightly tinted. So in this case I'm just gonna round that, and hopefully we can blend a little bit of that in. There's a little bit there as well. And let's see if we can like soften that edge. There we go. So for a blocked in area, that's fine. They're the tones that we'll be after. Obviously I'll complete that below, but you really can't see that. So I'm just going to do that bit there. There you go. Right. So that's toned in as much as I want it to be at the moment. Or is it? So you always find something once you've said something profound. There you go. The next thing we want to do now that's dry is get a hint of like a light brown into it, which will complement the darker brown that you can see in the reference image. So I'm gonna, with a brush that's a bit dry, I don't know if you're going to see this, to be honest with you. I'm just very lightly introducing, might be a little bit too like that, in areas. I'm just hinting, mainly there, that there's a, and we're going to put it a little bit there as well. Not so much, I think there's a little bit there, but and a little bit round there. And that will make a nice base for the darker dark brown feathers that exist on this particular bird, which we'll do next. Okay, we're getting into the detail now, and some of the dark brown feathering. Now what I've done is I've using this rake brush, it's a filbert rake brush, I've mixed a light brown and a dark brown in. I'm going to put a little bit more dark brown in because I think I've just slightly overdone it with the light. Right, so this is got a mixture of two colours in it that's priming it. So round here I'm gonna there's an area like that, and then now you might think, oh, it's too dark, but it will fade, so we don't have to overly worry about how dark something is. And the dark brown feathers seem to be a lot less prominent at this side, so I'm not going to do as much. But I want to use it as a kind of sculpting tool to show you the shape and form of the body as well. And I'm not absolutely following the exact. When it comes to feathers like this, I don't feel that it's that appropriate to be putting each feather in its exact position, because to be frank, it's neon impossible to do that. And it takes the spontaneity away from the painting if you do that. There's an area here that's quite prominent with the dark, and we'll really see how well this is done once we've let it dry a bit. And then round here's obviously going to, I'm not doing too much round there because we'll focus his attention around the eye when we get to that. I'm just getting the key feathers and things like that in, and I want to kind of sculpt that a bit, and that's quite heavily painted. And again, there's a very specific pattern that occurs with these feathers on this particular bird, and that's a reasonable representation of it. In fact, it's a bit strange because some of these look like little hearts. And we've got one there, and that's as far as I'm going to go. Might be a little bit more there, but I'll get me white and I get a little bit of that lighter this has got to be really, really watery. And This just like kind of ties it at certain areas together, very heavily concentrated areas. And again, it helps sculpt the shape of the bird as well, because it's important to try and make it, if we're going for something that's photorealistic, and I don't mean hyperrealism, hyperrealism, I mean something that is more looking like the real thing rather than an abstract or a impressionistic painting. If we're going for that, we've got to try as best to get these values and these positions as well set out as we possibly can, which is what I'm hoping to do with this. I think I'm pretty much happy with that for the time being. We'll let that dry, and we'll come back to it and see what work we need to do to it to get it up to the final point. Let's now try and get some eye detail in, and as you can see from the reference image, it's pretty yellow, that, isn't it? So let's get a bit of yellow in, although I will be doing this quite light, and over a period of several coats. See if I can get, don't want too much on the brush. We'll just get that first initial yellow layer in. Right, we'll let that dry. I can't really see any other colours that need that yellow. So just before we go any farther, I'm going to get a little bit of slightly lighter I'm going to bias the eye quite light at this side and make that stronger at that side, but when that's dry then we can go over it by putting the black bit of the eye in and various other things. One thing that does exist around this area, in fact I'm not going to use that, I'll see if I can use my calligraphy brush to do that. Around here there's quite a few bits of detail. I'm not going to touch around there yet. I'm trying to keep well away from that bit that I've just painted there, and until it's thoroughly dry I really don't want to be touching that at all. So I'm being ever so careful, doing a bit more sculpting up here. Slightly remodelling the bird as you go along, because when you put the painting in, sometimes you can actually see areas that you can improve on from the original drawing, and I've certainly seen that in the drawing that I've done here. And while I've got this really nice detailed brush, I'm going to feather a few little bits of these hard lines out a bit, which helps with the soft fluffiness of the bird. Sometimes they are quite hard, the feathers, and sometimes they have a softness about them. So it's got an area there that's quite dark, which brings out that little bit there that's and then a rim like that. The next bit to do is the beak. So I'm going to mix up a bit of blue and add it to some of that dark brown that I've got, and what I can see really is a very, very dark blue, starting from, this is where we can do a little bit of remodelling, because I'm not 100% happy with the shape of the beak itself. Just concentrating, sorry about that. It goes like that, and then there's a darker bit that I'll put in later. It goes down like that, and then it comes back round to the other side of the beak. But we can deal with anything. I want to get rid of a lot of that, so what I will do is blot it. There we go. And just put bits in areas that I'm absolutely happy with. There you go, that's better. And seem to have some area there that's got a bit of greyness there. And again, some more detailed areas. Just one more area that needs to be dark is there, and obviously that's its breathing hole for its nose or whatever. Don't know whether they call them a nose. So that goes all dark there, maybe like that, and a bit more dark blue. See if I can give that a bit more definition. I just realised that I need to make this area around here a lot wider, so I'm going to do a little bit of remodelling, and how I'm going to do that is I'm going to use, fortunately the area around there is white, very light, So what I'm going to do is get some of my white gouache and round there and go and that comes down a bit. I'm going to emphasise that because that's a bit how it looks, and a bit more chunkiness there, bring some of that in. And just to tie that up a bit, give a little bit of the white there. Now I've got that white in, I can blend that and so what I may need to do after I've finished modelling that is define the outer edges of the background so that we can get it a bit more exact if needs be. So we're now going to go on to painting the rest of that eye. So I've got a bit of that dark brown and a bit of blue, and we've put that together, and that's going to make a very strong black. Make sure that I've not got too much on my brush. That put that like that, and then at the edge of that it's got a very dark rim. And we're going to keep working at this and getting various dark areas in. There's a definite area there that's very dark, and it really is about continuing to get layers in. And get another bit of dark there. Now there is a very light creamy yellow. It's more close to brown actually. Up here above this nostril thing. So I'm gonna put that in and just add a teeny bit of yellow. Now I think what I'm going to do as well with that is add a little bit of detailing in the eye at this side, and it gives it that three-dimensional feel. You may not see it in the image, but when you look at it up close you will see that there's a sense of three dimension there. Now another thing we need to do is put a little bit of an highlight in that dark area. Bit of a one there, maybe one there, and there'll be catch lights of various bits all the way around that. There's one there that we need to emphasise. Got an area there that's quite white as well, and hopefully we're starting to build up a sense of realism as we're going on, and we're building these things. And I'm just getting other areas and giving that a little bit more emphasis. Right. Well, I'm going to leave it for time being, let it dry for a bit, and we'll come back and finish off any fine details that we need to do with it to get it to the level it needs to be. Right, what I want to do is carve this out a little bit better, and I'm gonna bring that in a bit. And just make sure that's well defined. Fade that off, and slightly remodel this area, because I brought that in a bit. I'm going to push that out a lot more. So first thing I'm going to do is get this to be quite strong round there, the light, strangely enough. Gonna once I've got that how I want it, I'll remodel round that background and crisp it up, and it'll look fine. That. So just need to do a little bit of brown work. Let's see if I can go back to this this combination of various dark browns. Right, doing darker and darker browns in there, and we'll be able to right, we'll let that dry and see how that is, and we'll really go to the final finishing touches on the painting. I think I want to extend that eye a little bit, so I'll get some yellow. Might be a little bit big, this brush. Is that? Yes, it is. I don't know, using great big brushes like that for eyes. That will mean that I'll need to move the inner dark bit of the eye a little bit more that way, and we'll also give that a little bit of life by blending it in to what we've already got. get some of that white gouache and a little bit of that yellow, and just to this side here there's a kind of a little bit of a coloration of some sort. Very subtle, but we'll let that dry and finish the eye off. Or can we do it? I don't know. Let's have a look. No, it's telling me that it's not going to happen. We'll let that dry. And some deep dark areas. There are definitely some very strong dark areas there. And what you have to do is know when to stop, and I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking I need to stop with this, or I might start doing too much work on it. Alright. Last little bit. Just make sure that's right. And that's it as far as I can really go at the moment. So final bit of background sculpting to get this as good as we can get it. I'm going to of blue in, get me dark brown again, and another bit of dark brown, tiny little bit of blue. Right, where do we start? I'm going to start there. Bit of dark round there that comes right up to the point of the beak, so that we get a nice definition. And it goes a bit light round there. Although I'm going to put a little bit in there. A little bit more there, and really I'm just going to be quite random in that area. Bit more dark there. And we'll see how that goes once we've got it all dried. But just to finish off, I want to get that eye done and corrected. So let's Right, we'll have a bit of an assessment once we've got everything dried, and we'll see how we've got. Not happy with that beak, it's a bit too long. So again, it's a matter of sculpting it a bit. It don't come down as far as what it does do, so we can get rid of that bit. And it don't go across as much either, so I can get rid of literally an awful lot of that. And just blend that out. That's better. when that's dry, that should be a lot better. Just make sure that's kind of blending with the rest of that. Now that's smaller, I want to make that there a more tighter angle. One more last little bit to do really, and that's, I really do like the little speckly white bits at the back of there, which is a bit weird because the light's coming from this direction, but we're still getting some strong light areas there, which I want to add in. Only wisps of it. And that it like comes to about there where it and just to put a tiny bit of emphasis, it's got a bit of an area there, very thin area that goes all the way around the eye. Teeny bit of blue there, a bit strong, but blend a few of those in. Make that a bit more round. Final finishing touches in various places, and I would imagine that will be done. And what I will more than likely do is go on to finish the other part of the painting. What I mean by that is the painting itself is that long, and all we are seeing is the head part of it. That's why the head isn't as detailed as you would imagine for a full head shot. So teeny weeny little bits. A little bit there. And I think we're done for this section anyway. Yeah, I still see some more things I could do, and that's it. That's a problem with painting. Just when you think you're done, there's something comes up, and it's just that I just want that ever so slightly. No, we're starting to get a bit too photorial. Where do you stop? Right. Okay, that's the painting done from the head viewpoint. Just as a bonus bit to the painting, you'll notice that I've changed the image, the reference, to the full picture, and I'm going to finish the rest of the bird off, and that's the reason why the head isn't as detailed as what it would be if it were just a head painting. It's actually part of a much larger body, but all it is really is pretty much similar to what I did earlier. So I'm going to do that in time-lapse, and then we'll zoom out and look at the final end image. So here is the final full picture, the full body and head, and that's the reason why we didn't do lots of major detailing on it. But this is the painting, and I hope that you've enjoyed and got something out of this. We'll see you in the next video when we do a painting. Bye for now.